Honorable prayers. Almighty God, we beseech thee to look with favorment of Ghana. Grant that it may perform this high duty as in thy sight. Divine Ghana as the President of the Republic, the members of Parliament and ministers of state, with servant and vision, integrity and courage, that through the labors of government this land and people may well and truly served, and thy good purposes for the common human life be realized in our midst. Amen. O God, grant us a vision for our country, fair as it might be a country of righteousness, with none shall wrong his neighbor, a country of plenty where evil and poverty shall be done away with, brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service, and honor shall be given to the deserving. A country of peace, the government shall rest on the will of the people. Bless the efforts of those who make this vision a living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people that they may give time and sacrifice. This be the day for the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Rules and Proceedings, 25th June. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11. And page 12. Honorable members, in the absence of any corrections, the votes and proceedings of 25th June are hereby adopted as true record of proceedings. Official report, 4th June. Any corrections? In the absence of any corrections therein, the official report of 4th June is admitted as true record of proceedings. Honorable members, item 3, business statement, led by the Honorable Majority Chief Whip on behalf of the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I present the business statement for the ensuing week as the 7th week ending Friday 3rd on behalf of the Majority Leader and the Chairman of the Business Committee. Mr. Speaker, the committee Thursday 25th June 2020 and arranged business of the House for the 7th week ending Friday 3rd July 2020. Right Honorable Speaker, the committee accordingly submits its report as follows. Arrangement of business. Formal communications by the Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you may read any available communication to the House. Mr. Speaker, the Business Committee has scheduled the following ministers to respond as of them during the week. Minister for Roads and Highways. Minister for Works and Housing. 2. Minister for Finance. 1. Right Honorable Speaker, in all, 3 ministers expected to attend upon the House to respond to 10 questions during the week. The questions are of the following types: 2 urgent questions, 8 oral questions. Mr. Speaker, the Business Committee hereby informs this Honorable House that subject to the receipt of admissions from Mr. Speaker, particularly questions relating to the road and energy sectors, the affected ministers would be programmed on to same as soon as practicable. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Order 72, ministers of state may be permitted to make statements of government policy. Statements duly admitted by your good self may be made in the House by honorable members in accordance with Order 72. Right Honorable Speaker, bills may be presented to the House for first reading in accordance with Order 120. However, bills of urgent nature may be taken through the various stages one day in accordance with Order 119. Pursuant to Order 75, papers for presentation to the House may be placed on the order for laying. Committee reports may also be presented to the House for consideration. Motions and resolutions. Right Honorable Speaker, motions may be debated and their consequential resolutions, if any, taken during the week. Mr. Speaker, annexed to this memorandum is the day-to-day business arranged for next week. That's Tuesday, 30th June, Wednesday, July, Thursday, 2nd July, and Friday, 3rd. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order 162 and subject Standing Order 53, the Business Committee submits to this Honorable House the order in which the business of the House shall be taken during the week under consideration. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Leader. Yes.
Grateful, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Electoral Commission is scheduled to begin a nationwide registration exercise next week, Tuesday. And I want to find out, as we did for the majority side when they were going for their primaries, if it will be possible for this House to suspend sittings at least for Tuesday and Wednesday to enable us fully participate in the takeoff of the registration exercise. Thank you.
Definitely, this is not an appropriate issue to raise here. It does not emanate from business statement necessarily. If you want any such thing, contact your leader, and then the leaders will meet to discuss. As you say, the House can take a decision on this here. It's not possible. And that's what the honorable members must be aware of. If there's any other matter, if the honorable yes, honorable, please.
Right, Speaker, I would not want to challenge your judgment.
Then please take your seat. Thank you. But please, if you do not want to challenge,
ask him because
please, you cannot visit that area where I have ruled upon.
No, because the business is red. I thought his question
please,
was in response to
if there is something else you want to raise, do so. Yes. Honorable Majority Chief Whip. Yes. Honorable.
Right. Despite the earlier suggestion made by our colleague,
Pardon?
I want us to look at a situation where we will endanger the business of the House. From all indications, since the beginning of the week, attendance has been poor. And issues of quorum can come, especially the tall business that we have here. When people begin to raise issues of quorum, then we are endangering the work of the House. And it is likely to remain same, at least in this first week of the registration exercise. That is why we think that it is prudent to suspend sitting for that period. Then when we know that we've settled our people to commence the registration exercise, then we can concentrate here on the work of the...
All the leaders belong to the business committee. So there are some of these issues that you have to direct, even in advance, to the leaders of your to your leaders. Honorable Minority Leader, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll start with the call for the Electoral Commission chairperson to come before the Committee of the Whole to address the whole House on her timetable. Mr. Speaker, yesterday at the Business Committee was raised, there was this issue about meeting the committee. Now, Mr. Speaker, what is being requested here is different from meeting a committee of parliament. I mean, I've been President Kufuor's time. Mr. Speaker, if you remember very well, when we were here, Afrajan appeared before us at least about 4 occasions. Charlotte appeared in the Committee of the Whole to tell us about the timetable. Now we are some few months to election. I think it is important that the chair of the Electoral Commission come to address the House on this, so that we are clear on the timetable between now and Speaker. When I said the committee, there was argument that this was never raised. Mr. Speaker, I just want to refer the House to the official report.
What you are saying has been raised, and it's important.
Yes, because it was at the Business Committee, it has not been raised. And I insisted that as far back as May 28, 2019.
Honorable, the point.
So, Mr. Speaker, secondly,
it is raised. And if it's not being raised, you are entitled to raise it at a time like this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Majority Chief Whip,
Mr. Speaker, I'm not done.
Speak to it. Oh, very well.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday when we were at the Business Committee, we sincerely didn't anticipate Supreme Court ruling what may come out of it. After the Business Committee, now the Supreme Court ruling has come. We are going to have the registration exercise. I'm looking at the part of the business, whether my colleague, the Majority Whip, we may look at how to stagger them. For sure, many of us will be in the conference trying to stabilize to see how the program starts. So if the way we planned, as of yesterday morning, with a lot of business, we have to be realistic. Many of them, it may be difficult for us to be able to carry them. I hope we'll find a way of scaling them down so that we hamper the work of the House. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think you have appropriately responded to the first question. Honorable member.
Then don't raise it. It is
the concern raised by the honorable member for Oswejamine, and I think the same goes for Honorable Kodo, and he was raising issues about quorum. I think we'll look at how we manage the situation in the course of next week. Mr. Speaker, I think the Majority Leader and the Chairman of the Business Committee has indicated that you will make the appropriate arrangements for the person of the Electoral Commission to brief the House on the timetable leading to the elections on the 7th of December. So we'll stand by that. I will impress upon the leader, talk to the EC and see when it is appropriate to invite them here to meet us. We represent the people and we need to know what they have for us. The Minority Chief Whip is concerned about the volume of business that we are scheduling for next week. I think this is what the committee agreed upon before the Supreme Court ruling. So we could not change it or amend it because the committee itself has not met again. If it is impossible to implement all these businesses of next week, those that have to be deferred to a future date, can be deferred, as we have done almost all the time. So I think he should hold his guns and we wait to see what happens in the course of next week. I'm most grateful, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable, I'll be very grateful if in a week's time it be a part of the business statement that the EC will visit the committee of the whole to brief this honorable house, as has happened before, and which is a demand from some members of this honorable house. For us, we were appraised of developments, etc., regarding election 2020. It must feature in the business statement with a specific date. Otherwise, a week's time, I will give one. Please, let it not get to that stage. I thank you very much. Honorable members, on that note, the business statement as presented is admitted accordingly. Statements. I'm sorry. Questions. The Honorable Minister for Roads and Highways, if you kindly take the appropriate chair. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Question star 744, which stands in the name of the Honorable Second Deputy Speaker.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask the Minister for Roads and Highways question number 744 at page 2 of today's order paper. To ask the Minister for Roads and Highways when the Tapu Nambili Jarapong Tangasia Naduli Road will be upgraded. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Tapo Navili Chirepong Tankesia Lorry Road, measuring a distance of 24.9 kilometers, forms part of the Kalio Sankana Tapo Nadori Road, also measuring 37.40 kilometers, and it's a feeder road. Mr. Speaker, it is located in the Nadori of the Upper West region. The section from Kalio through Sankana to Tapo, measuring a distance of 12.5 kilometers, has an ongoing contract for upgrading to the terminus surface, whereas the section from Tapo through Chirepong, Tangesia to Nadori is gravel surface and in poor condition. Mr. Speaker, currently there is no upgrading or rehabilitation program on the road. Moving into the future, Mr. Speaker, engineering design studies and cost estimates for the upgrading of the road to bituminous surface from Tako to Nadore completed. However, the implementation of the work will be considered under the 2020 periodic maintenance budget of the DFR, that is Department of Federal. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Yes, Honorable Second Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, will the Minister be kind enough to tell the House when the engineering design studies and cost estimates were completed? When?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we started engineering work and studies on these projects from the last quarter of last year, and by the end of the first quarter this year, all such engineering studies have been completed and are being fed into the database of the respective agencies of the ministry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Minister spoke about the engineering design studies cost estimate for upgrading of the road to bituminous surface. But his last part says, however, the implementation of the works will be considered under the 2021 periodic maintenance. Is upgrading to bituminous surface the same as periodic maintenance?
Honorable Minister, your question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, whenever we say that road will be developed up to bituminous surfacing, it could stand on its own. Despite that, we also put all such road projects under what we call periodic and routine maintenance to make sure that it is motorable. And we use such terms interchangeably so that until the road is developed into bituminous level, we don't leave such a road in its deteriorated state. At least something must be done to make the road motorable. So as part of our periodic maintenance for this year up to next, because it's always a year's protection, is being captured. But within it, we also have in our database that road project should be developed, and once it starts, it will be developed up to bituminous level. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable. Well, your last question, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, will the Minister be kind enough to tell the House when the road between the Tapo to Nadoli is to be upgraded to a bituminous surface? Well, the Minister will have a program. Now, he's talking about periodic maintenance 2021. In the program of the Ministry, when will it be upgraded to bituminous surface?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to assure him that is captured under the 2021 budget and its undertaking. I can give that assurance, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Question star 734.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Roads and Highways what steps are being taken to upgrade the following roads. 1. Tojino through Toklame and Awiakofe to Dabala Junction. 2. Lanvi through Tulesem to Nutekbo roads.
Thank you very much. I will minister a question, please.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the above stretch of road is in two sections. That is Tojinu through Dokpame and Ewuyako to Dabala Junction. 1. Tojinu to Dokpame and 2. Ewuyako to Dabala Junction. Mr. Speaker, I believe the first one, the Tojinu through the Kwame Road is 1.2 kilometers long. It forms part of the Tojinu through Kwame to Agotako feeder road and has a total length of 12.5 kilometers. It is located in the southern district of the Volta region. The section from to the Kwame has gravel surface in fair condition. Mr. Speaker, the second section, which is from the Kwame to Agotako, is unengineered and in poor condition. Currently, Mr. Speaker, the program is that there is no upgrading or rehabilitation program on the road. But the future program is that the traffic volume on the road is observed to be very low, that is less than 10 vehicles a day. The Department of Feeder Road has programmed to undertake engineering design studies to upgrade the engineered section to gravel surface from Dokwame to Agotako under the 2021 feeder budget. 2. Awu Yakope to Dabala Junction. Mr. Speaker, the background to this road, which is 8 kilometers long, is that the road is part of the Dabala Junction to the Kwame feeder road, which measures 0.3 kilometers. The road is located in the southern district of the Volta region and has gravel surface in fair condition. There are some sections with worn out gravel. Currently, there is no upgrading or rehab program on the road, but the future program is that, Mr. Speaker, the traffic volume on the road is observed also to be very low, again less than 10 vehicles per day. The road will be programmed for rebuilding under Department of Feeder Roads 21 budget. B. Lave through Tourism to Nutako Road, measuring a distance of 4.1 kilometers. It is an unengineered road located in the southern district of the Volta region. Currently, Mr. Speaker, there is no rehabilitation program on the road. Future program is that engineering studies will be conducted on this road in the third quarter of 2020 to determine the appropriate upgrading intervention. Thereafter, Mr. Speaker, the works will be considered under Department Leader Rules 2021 budget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Now we shall ask question each. We have a tall order here. So structure your question accordingly to capture what is the essence of yours.
Mr. Speaker. Well, that's well taken, Mr. Speaker. That's with reference to the answer. There was a mention of the future program under the Nutakpo Tajinu to the Klame Road as having low vehicular traffic. And then we considered that to be less than 10 vehicles per day. I'm aware the Klame is a market center. Vehicles from Adan and the environment travel there on Wednesdays especially. I don't know when this assessment was carried. So if you can provide us when this assessment, as per what you have given, was carried out. The assessment that this is so. Currently, it doesn't reflect the situation.
Oh, no.
When was that assessment done?
Minister, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm taking note of the honorable members' concern. Normally, when we do traffic count on a road, we deal with averages. If we say that the vehicular movement on the vehicular count is 10 per day, it means that we have taken data on the road over so we are dealing with average. You were saying that it's a market center. Yes, it means that on a market day, there could be a number of vehicles. But we have taken into consideration both market days that the road might be busy and the rest of the days that the road might not be busy. The vehicular count or the traffic count, as we usually refer to, is important to the ministry because it determines how the road should be constructed. So if we know that there is a particular road with heavy traffic, then it will inform the scope of work on that road. So this is what we have in our database. But it might not be static. It could change depending upon the economic activities of the place. So I've taken note and we may do a further work on it. But as at now, this is what we have in our database. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, that stretch also serves as an important detour on the Accra-Plau Road between Double Junction. And so on daily basis, vehicles try to use there when they realize that there's traffic and some accident or so on. Will the minister consider carrying out some routine maintenance work on the road? Currently, it's in a very. Will you consider doing some routine maintenance work whilst we wait for the bigger picture, and also look at the of upgrading it to a bituminous surface? Will you consider that?
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is obvious. We do our best to ensure that we carry out regular maintenance. That's why we call them either routine or periodic maintenance on our roads all year round. And That is the purpose of the establishment of the road fund. The object of road fund is to cater for the routine and periodic maintenance of course, to a limited extent, rehabilitation. So I want to assure you that that road will be taken on board for routine maintenance until, as aforesaid, we capture it in the road program for 2021. And once we start developing that particular road, and it's becoming a regular feature, and we generalize it to all roads, any road that we decide to work on, we bring it to bituminous level so that it could last for a longer period to enable us to attend to other roads. So I want to assure you, my colleague, honorable colleague, that will be done, and I'll call on you. Let's work together on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Question star 736. Honorable member for Chanapaga. Question star 737.
Oh, 736 or 737?
Please proceed.
736.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to ask this question. Mr. Speaker, with your permission, may I know from the Minister for Roads and Highways what steps the Ministry is taking towards the rehabilitation of the following roads in the Katsina-Nankana West District? 1, Kantika Junction to Sitigo Road, and 2, Chichulga to Chana-Bakong Road. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, your question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Kandiga-Siligo feeder road is 17 kilometers long and is located in Katsina-Nankana West District of the Upper East Region. The first 5 kilometers of the road is bitumen and is in good condition, whereas the remaining 12 kilometers are gravel surfaced in fair condition. Currently, Mr. Speaker, contract for the upgrading of kilometer 5 to kilometer 10, that is the next 5 kilometers. Out of the remaining 12 kilometer gravel section was awarded under the Cocobot Feeder Road Improvement on 9th August 2011. The contract on 25th October 2011 and was expected to be completed on 24th April 2013, a period of 18 calendar months. The contractor abandoned the works after executing works up to the physical progress of work was better at 37% physical. Mr. Speaker, the future program for this road is that the Department of Feeder is reviewing the current status of the works, including initiating the contractual procedure to terminate the contract for poor performance. Engineering, design, and review studies will be conducted over the entire 12-kilometer gravel section by the end of third quarter of 2020 for upgrading of the road to bituminous surfacing. The execution of the works will be considered under 2021 budget of the Department of Feeder Roads. Chuchuliga to China to Nakon Road, measuring a distance of 34 kilometers. Mr. Speaker, the Chuchuliga Nakon Road forms an integral part of the National Road N30, which connects Bolgatanga through Navrongo, Chuchuliga, Chana, Nakon in the Upper East region, to Tumu, Han, Lora, and beyond in the Upper West region. Specifically, the Chuchuliga-Chana Nakon Road is located in the Katsina and Kanal district of the Upper East region. Currently, Mr. Speaker, the road is about 34 kilometers and was awarded on contract for rehabilitation. The contract commenced 19 September 2016 and was originally scheduled for completion on 18 September 2018. The project starts at kilometer 2.65 from Navrongo, that is Tono Junction, and ends at Nakon. The first section of the Navrongo, that's again Tono Junction to Chuchuliga, which is about 13 kilometers in length, has been completed up to Pramasi. The contractor has also executed some concrete drains, construction of pipe covers, and scarification works within the second section, that is the Chuchuliga Nakon Road. The project was temporarily suspended for some time due to delayed payment for work done. The contractor has resumed work following receipt of some payment. Scarification and widening of the second section of the road is ongoing. The project is at 38% physical completion. The work is expected to be completed by 1st December 2020. Moving into the future on this project, Mr. Speaker, upon completion of the rehabilitation works, the road will receive an asphalt concrete under the Maintenance Intervention Program of the Ghana Highway Authority. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. One question.
From the answer given on the Kandiga to Sirigu Road, the indication is that it is about 37% complete. But since 2017, no work has actually been done there, and the road has deteriorated so dramatically that it's almost unusable. Will the minister consider doing something as a matter of urgency now that the rains are setting in, so at least the community members will be able to use the road while awaiting your review in the third quarter of 2020?
Honorable Minister, anything you can do, any temporary measure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in my answer, I have clearly indicated that the contractor left the site. But because government has effected some payment to the contractor, some of the road, that's where the Chuchuliga Chiana Nakon Road, covering a distance of 34 kilometers, the contractor has come back and is working. And I want to assure my honorable colleague that it's part of our permanent program that until any road is worked on to bituminous level, and I will appreciate that we cannot work on all roads in the country simultaneously. So until we tackle any road to bituminous level, that is, until we seal any road. We try as much as possible to bring all such roads under our NAS program. So that will be considered. And in such matters, I once again would like to invite all honorable colleagues that let us work together on daily, weekly basis so that we tackle such roads that require emergency treatment. So that will be done. I thank you.
Mr. Speaker.
Question star 739. Honorable member for Salaga. No. Question and a supplement.
Mr. Speaker, my colleague is not around. He's currently in his constituency.
We will proceed.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Roads and Highways steps the ministry is taking to ensure that the Tamale Salaga Makango Road is completed. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, question please. Honorable Minister, star 739.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Tamale Salaga Makango is made up of two classes of trunk roads. They are the Tamale Chambuligu section, part of the National Road N9, and the Chambuligu to Salaga to Makango section, which is part of the Inter-Regional Road IR04. The entire road principally lies in the Savannah region. Currently, Mr. Speaker, two contracts are on the road, as indicated below. One, construction of Salaga Makango Road in the distance between kilometer 51 to 80, about 29 or so kilometers. Mr. Speaker, this project commenced on 27th October 2012 and was originally scheduled for completion on 26th October 2015. The project suffered delay for work done, and this compelled the contractor to suspend work on several occasions. The contractor has resumed work following receipt of some payment. Laying of base course and primary seal works are ongoing. Work progress is at 51% fiscal completion. 2. Rehabilitation of Tamale Salaga to Makango Road, that is the stretching kilometer 80 and kilometer 137. This project commenced on 25th May 2015 and was scheduled for completion on 25th May 2019. The contractor suspended the project due to the delay in paying for work done, but has now moved back to site to contract at 10th June 2020. Work progress is at 18% fiscal completion. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hello.
Mr. Speaker, in the minister's answer, paragraph 3, said the contractor has resumed the following receipt of some payments. Laying of base course and premier seal works are ongoing. I want to find out from the minister when the project will be completed. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, your question.
Mr. Speaker, originally the project was supposed to last for 3 years because it was awarded on 27th October 2012 and was scheduled for completion by October 2015. But within this period, no payment was effected. Between 2015, no payment was effected, and the contractor left side. We have brought the contractor back, and on the Makango road, I had the opportunity to visit that road only last week when I undertook a tour of all the 5 northern regions, northern, upper east, upper west, savannah, and northeast. I visited this project. Contractor is on site. So the duration for the construction of that road still remains. He began before locating site. Within the next 2.5 years, this project is supposed to be completed because it's a long stretch of road. Thank you.
Honorable Member for Gabori. Honorable Ibrahim.
Right, Honorable Speaker, I ask for permission to ask this question on behalf of the Honorable Tanko, who is indisposed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask the Minister for Roads and when the Kubore to Zangwara Road will be rehabilitated.
Honorable Minister, your question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Kubori to Zangwara Feeder Road is for 6.4 kilometers, located in the Mamprugu Mwagduri district of the Northeast region. It's a partially engineered earth road in poor condition. Currently, Mr. Speaker, there is no rehabilitation or upgrade program on the road. However, the future plan is that design studies and estimates for the rehabilitation of the road have been carried out. However, due to budgetary constraints, procurement and execution of the works will be considered under the 2020 budget for the Department of Feeder Roads. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Your question. Any comment, please?
Mr. Speaker, a follow-up question. Honorable Minister, would you want to consider applying the road fund as the source of funding? Eventually, you give some particular attention in the next budget.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleague has suggested perhaps his own favorite source of funding. But to assure him, fortunately, the total kilometrage of 6.4 is said that it can be absorbed under the road fund. So if we undertake the construction in 2021. Your wishes will be granted. Thank you.
Honourable Minister, for attending to the House this morning, as usual, and answering our questions. We are most grateful. We are respectfully discharged. Statement. Minister for Foreign Affairs will make a statement. 75th anniversary signing of the United Nations Charter. Just a moment. 1 minute, please, if you will, please. The Honourable Minister for Roads may please wait a moment. Question 739.
Mr. Speaker, I seek you to ask the question on behalf of my colleague. I rise to ask the Minister for Roads and Highways when the work on the road networks of Daboya to Mankarigo and Daboya to Busino. Thank you.
Honourable Minister, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Busunu to Daboya to Mankregu Road forms an integral part of the inter-regional road IR10, which connects Daboya, Mankarigo, and all in the Savannah region and close to Stilriga in the Upper East region. The Busunu to Daboya to Mankarigu Road is made up of the following two sections: Busunu and Daboya Mankarigu. Mr. Speaker, I begin with Busunu Daboya. Currently, this road is 53 kilometers in length. The road was awarded on contract for to bituminous surface treatment. The project commenced on 1st January 2015 and was originally scheduled for completion on 1st June 2017. The project is about 67% physical completion. The project suffered delayed payment for work done, and this affected the contractor's cash flow, which led to suspension of works. The contractor has resumed work and is preparing the road surface for the placing of the base course. The project is expected to be completed by 31st November 2020, that is this year. 2. Daboya to Mankregu Road. Mr. Speaker, currently, this route measures 63 kilometers in length and lies principally in the North Bunja district of the Savannah region. The road is unengineered and previously classified as a missing link because it was inaccessible. In view of the importance of the road, efforts have been made over the years for periodic maintenance interventions to open it up and improve on its serviceability level. Mr. Speaker, the first 10 kilometers of the road, that is from 0 to 10, was awarded on contract for upgrading to bituminous surface. The project commenced on 7th November 2016 and was originally scheduled for completion on 6th November 2018. The project is 32% completed. The project delayed payment for work done, and this affected the contractor's cash flow, which led to the suspension of works. The Speaker, the contractor is back on site and work is progressing. The project is scheduled for completion on 6 November 2020, as per the contractor's program of works, which is also linked to the timeliness of the payment situation. Similarly, Mr. Speaker, the remaining section of the road, that is from kilometer to kilometer 63, covering a distance of 53 kilometers, has been awarded on contract for upgrading to bituminous surface in 2 lots as part of the critical road project. The lot 1 from kilometer 0 to 30, and the lot 2 is from kilometer 30 to kilometer 63. The 2 projects commenced in March 20. Both contractors are right and the works are progressing steadily. The lot 1 is projected at 2% physical completion and is scheduled for completion by 18th March 2022. The lot 2 also is projected at 5.5% physical completion and is expected to be completed by 10th of 2022. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, one supplementary, if any.
Mr. Speaker, in the minister's answer, he said the contractors are back to site. I want to find out if they have received some payments for which they are back to site, since that was the reason why they are back to projects. Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is so. The contractors' reason for abandoning sites when the project to them as far back as 2015 because of lack of payment. Between 2015 and 2016, they were not paid. That is why they parked off-site. We have brought them back, and it's because of payment made to them. That's why they are back on the road. Because these are 2 critical roads, and I mentioned in my answer that the projects have been considered under our critical road projects. And Mr. Speaker, once more, I want to put on record that I visited these 2 roads just last week, and I can confirm that the contractors on site, and the contractors are Mawum and Marikoma. I met them on site, and they are working. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister, for attending to the House and answering our questions this morning. Please discharged. Honourable Minister for Foreign Affairs, please. Your turn. Your state.
Right Honourable Speaker, it is with great honor that I address this August House on this memorable occasion of the 75th anniversary of the signing of the United Nations Charter. 75 years ago, some 50 nations convened in San Francisco to declare commitment to peace, signaling an end to a 6-year war that had caused great destruction to mankind. As we commemorate this important milestone of the United Nations today, it is important to reflect on both the successes and lessons learned in implementing the United Nations Charter over the last 75 years. Conscious of the opportunity to examine how best to overcome current and emerging global challenges, the Committee of Nations unanimously agreed that the theme for this important commemoration should be the United Nations we need, reaffirming our collective commitment to multilateralism. Mr. Speaker, several years of global conflicts and strife have taught us that our world is better off when nations work together. The institutions and systems that were born out of the ashes of World War II, particularly the United Nations, have promoted social cohesion and allowed our societies to flourish. Through shared responsibility and accountability, shared burden and costs, the United Nations has helped to reduce global conflict. It has ensured significant reduction in famine and poverty, coupled with massive gains in developing the protection of human rights. Ghana, as you well know, became a member of the United Nations 2 days after attainment of independence on 8th March 1957. Since then, Ghana, guided by commitment to the principles and ideals of the United Nations Charter, as enshrined in our national foreign policy, has pursued balanced and principled positions on a wide range of issues on the agenda of the organization. Ghana's active involvement within the United Nations spans the period of colonization of the African continent, during which Ghana used the UN as a platform to advocate freedom from colonialism, formulate joint African positions. Mr. Speaker, the very essence of multilateralism and international cooperation, which remains the foundation of the UN Charter, is being tested by the crisis that the world finds itself in today as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Notwithstanding the challenges, the United Nations, through its member states and specialized agencies, including the World Health Organization, WHO, is providing political leadership and forging global solidarity to effectively overcome the pandemic, to mitigate the dire socioeconomic impact on affected countries. As part of the response, the UN Interagency Standing Committee developed and launched a $2 billion COVID-19 Global Humanitarian Response Plan aimed at fighting the virus in developing countries and addressing the needs of vulnerable people. Additionally, Ghana, together with 5 other countries, namely Indonesia, Liechtenstein, Singapore, Switzerland, Norway, were the pen holders in the first joint draft resolution on the fight against COVID-19 pandemic, thereby providing leadership at the multilateral level in keeping with its own national response and strategy. Ghana's role in the issuance of the draft resolution on the pandemic has not only placed the country on the world stage during this critical time, but also ensured that our national concerns have been reflected in the resolution. Mr. Speaker, in 2018, world leaders adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which embodies the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and 169 targets as a successor framework to the Millennium Development Goals, the MDGs. As you may recall, Ghana achieved some key MDG targets, including the eradication of extreme poverty and hunger, as well as ensuring gender equality and empowerment. Agenda 2030 therefore seeks to complete the unfinished targets of the NDGs, introducing a distinct feature of the principle of leaving no one behind. Consistent with his key role in the work of the United Nations, such as norm setting, capacity building, and advocacy in human rights and respect for international law, the President of the Republic, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, is actively engaged in international facilitators' work as co-chair of the SDGs advocates. At the national level, he has mainstreamed the SDGs into Ghana's budget and is also superintendent of collaboration of all MDAs in pursuit of the goals. Mr. Speaker, through the United Nations, the world has made significant progress towards an equitable global economic system. The agenda includes a new global framework financing sustainable development by aligning all financial flows and policies with economic, social, and environmental priorities. The international community, through dialogue and concerted efforts, has made remarkable on the issue of climate change. International instruments such as the Paris Agreement on climate change stand as a testament to what can deliver when called upon to do so. The threat of climate change is multidimensional and its impacts transcend national borders. In view of this, Ghana is committed to reducing the impact of climate change. Mr. Speaker, the United Nations has identified issues of human rights as indispensable to the maintenance of international peace and security. Agenda 2030 is therefore unequivocally anchored on human rights. Ghana continues to the work of the United Nations Human Rights Council. The Fourth Republic, Ghana has consistently ensured respect for human rights, peace, democracy, and the rule of law has always remained on top of its national agenda. The country has ratified majority of the core international human rights treaties, adopted many laws which are conducive to the promotion, respect, and promotion of human rights. Mr. Speaker, the role of women is no doubt critical in building and sustaining peace. Research has shown that countries are more stable, secure, and prosperous when women enjoy the same rights as men, participate fully in their country's political and economies, and live free from violence. The fundamental role of women in political decision-making, therefore, can no longer be overlooked. Modest achievements by women in governance have proven that when given equal opportunities as their male counterparts, women are capable of leading and driving society. Indeed, for us in Ghana, our development aspirations are tailored towards ensuring inclusive economic growth, social development, and environmental protection to benefit all, particularly women, children, and future generations without any discrimination. Mr. Speaker, as the first African country to ratify the Convention on the Rights of the Child, government has put in place policies and institutions to address child labor and violence against children. On the youth front, the government is committed to ensuring that our vibrant youthful population populations are not characters in the green stories of long journeys across the Sahara and the Mediterranean in search of worthwhile livelihoods. So, government continues to be involved in initiatives that seek to empower the youth and endorse their continuous involvement in decision-making at all levels. Mr. Speaker, the promotion of international peace and security remains a critical pillar of the United Nations. UN peacekeeping remains the most effective tool available to the organization in the maintenance of peace and security under Chapter 7 of the Charter. Ghana has since independence fully supported UN and regional peacekeeping operations in Africa and around the world. Ours is an unwavering commitment to a world free from strife and instability. Mr. Speaker, Intergovernmental negotiations to reform the United Nations Security Council to make it broadly representative, efficient, and effective in addressing conflicts ongoing for many years. Having served on the Security Council 3 terms as a non-permanent member, Ghana attaches importance to these negotiations and has over the years supported ongoing initiatives for the reform of the Security Council to reflect geopolitical realities. 75 years ago, when the charter that we are commemorating today was signed, the world was distinctively different from what we know today. It is therefore imperative that the Security Council is reformed in accordance with the principles enshrined in the Elzewini Consensus, which advocates a fair representation of Africa on the Security Council. Ghana will continue to work with other African member states towards a more representative and democratic Security Council to enhance its efficiency to address the threats to international peace and security. The government of Akufo-Addo is therefore advocating that on the occasion of the 75th anniversary of the signing of the Charter, that the world body speeds up the work of intergovernmental negotiations towards the much-needed reforms of the Security Council. Mr. Speaker, Ghana remains resolute in the conviction that though daunting, the challenge to the Committee of Nations could be surmounted through innovative, bold, realistic, and achievable decisions by member states. As we deploy efforts to search for global solutions to global challenges, we must appreciate the fact that there is no entity that is more representative of global cooperation and multilateralism than the United Nations. It is therefore imperative we continue to promote mutually reinforcing and coordinating efforts among the main organs of the United Nations to enhance and uphold the ideals of multilateralism. The international community has a responsibility to sustain the relevance of the United Nations in this era and the years ahead. The future we desire, the United Nations can only be realized when the international community remains committed to multilateralism. Ghana, alongside other countries, is determined to play its part in this noble endeavor to proudly leave a legacy for generations yet unborn. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister for Foreign Affairs. The first Deputy Speaker will take the chair. Yes, Honorable Okoyeto Ablakwa.
I'm most grateful, Right Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the event that has been eloquently delivered by the Honorable Minister responsible for Foreign Affairs and Relations, a statement that marks the 75th anniversary of the coming into force of the United Nations Charter. This day, Mr. Speaker, is a very significant day. The United Nations agreed sometime last year that on the 26th of June, member nations will commemorate this day to mark 75 years of the existence of the UN under the theme, The Future We Want, the UN We Need, reaffirming our collective commitment to multilateralism. Mr. Speaker, it is important to recall that the United Nations, as it is presently constituted, was not the first attempt in history to have an intergovernmental global body. And that time, on the 10th of January in 1920, the first attempt to have such a body after the Treaty of Versailles, as was then inspired by President Woodrow Wilson of the United States of America, who in that year received the Nobel Peace Prize, set up the League of Nations. Mr. Speaker, the League of Nations came into force on the 1st of on the 10th of January 1920, and that was after World War I, with the aim of preventing a Second World War. But as we know from history, Mr. Speaker, the League of Nations could not achieve its objective. A Second World War was upon us, and many countries therefore pulled out from the nations. Germany, Japan, France, Italy, and many others followed. So the League of Nations collapsed, and effort, a renewed commitment came into being, where the UN Charter was put together and supported by member nations. Since the coming to force of the Charter, Mr. Speaker, the ideals of the Charter, which is the ever-inspiring words, the preamble of the Charter, which states, and I quote, "We, the peoples of the United Nations, determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, which twice in our lifetime has brought untold sorrow to mankind, and to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person, in the rights of men and women, and of nations large and small, and to establish conditions under which just and respect for the obligations arising from treaties and other sources of international law can be maintained, and to promote social progress and better standards of life in larger freedom." Mr. Speaker, these are enduring words which form the preamble of the UN. And it is to our collective success that the United Nations, unlike its predecessor body, the League of Nations, successfully prevented another world war. And so after World War II, there has been a world war. And so that alone is a major, major success. And the UN Charter must be celebrated as the longest successful charter, kept global peace and stability, and has brought member nations together. But as the Honorable Foreign Minister has said, the United Nations has had its own challenges. There is great success. There is a need for reforms. There is a need to pay closer attention to the principles of equity at the Security Council, and there is a need to ensure that even as we promote multilateralism, might should not be right. Bigger nations should not assume that just because they are mighty in terms of their military might, in terms of their economic wealth, they will have their way and they will trample on the rights of smaller. So, Mr. Speaker, we need to re-echo all of these ideals, the very reason why the United Nations was set up. And I want to rehash the points that have been made about the need to reform, about the need to, particularly African nations, well represented, and other nations that we are in solidarity with, nations that formed many years ago the non-aligned movement, aimed at ensuring that all sides in diplomatic relations come together and the path of peace. But, Mr. Speaker, there are still real challenges that the United Nations must confront. Global poverty is still a major, major issue. About 36%, according to the 2018 statistics of global poverty, that's 1.8 billion people, live in extreme poverty. That must be a scar on our conscience. We need to double efforts to not only achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, but to make life worth living, vast majority and indeed all persons of the world. Sadly, many African countries account for the majority of nations that are poor. If you look at global conflict, we still have so many conflicts that are raging on. Conflicts that are spanning decades now. The Middle East crisis, the conflict in Sudan, the conflict in many other parts of Africa, including colonialism, which has reared its ugly head so far as the Western Saharan issue is concerned. All of these matters must be boldly confronted. And we need to remind each other that the pursuit of global peace and stability has not been achieved, that the United Nations should be proactive in helping find an amicable resolution of global conflict. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I wish to add my voice to the Honorable Minister to salute Ghana for its role in UN peacekeeping. Ghana is well celebrated at the United Nations for the role we have played in contributing troops to peace operations. This year, we celebrate 3 years since our first deployment to the Congo under President Nkrumah in 1960. That is a milestone that this House must go on record to have commemorated. In celebrating our contributions to peace missions, we remember those who in the process lost their lives and those who suffered injuries. And we must also celebrate all the commanders who led these peace missions. Mr. Speaker, we cannot also celebrate the United Nations without remembering the role of Ghanaian diplomats in holding high the flag of Ghana at the United Nations. No wonder, Mr. Speaker, that Ghana has produced the United Nations Secretary General, the late Busumoru Kofi Annan, who we must also celebrate or commemorate the 75th anniversary of the UN Charter. Busumoru Kofi Annan, who successfully held 2 terms, is well regarded and very much respected for the role he played all through rising through the ranks, leading peace missions, and becoming the Secretary General of the United Nations. There are many, many others like Akwesi Saki, who, Mr. Speaker, became our first permanent rep to the United Nations, and many others who, for time, we cannot mention. So in celebrating the United Nations, we celebrate diplomats, all the ambassadors, the permanent reps we have sent there, but we rededicate ourselves, Mr. Speaker, to the ideals of the United Nations, so that we shall all work hard to prevent the scourge of war and to build for ourselves a world that will respect multilateralism. Some leaders are emerging lately who do not want to respect multilateral contracts. They are of international agreements at will. That is not a sustainable path. And I'm glad that the team reminds all of us to be committed to multilateralism, especially as we look at the scourge of COVID-19 and how we are learning that when we come to work together, we can defeat COVID-19, we can find a vaccine. Look at the role the Cuban doctors have played. I, Mr. Speaker, believe that Cuban doctors should receive this year's Nobel Prize for an amazing role they have played in volunteering. Even where indigenous doctors could not go, they went there, and we know what they did in Italy, what they did in France, and many other countries. So we celebrate Cuban doctors on this day as well. We celebrate multilateralism, and may the UN Charter continue to serve the world well, prevent another world war as it has done over the last 75 years. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me commend the Foreign Minister for this well-written press statement on the United Nations attainment of 75 years. Mr. Speaker, the ideals, the objectives, and the mission of the UN since its inception is still relevant. The global peace, the architecture, and everything that those who thought behind the formation of the United Nations is still important. Mr. Speaker, let me take you to page 5 of the minister's statement. And state the position of government. The government of President Akufo-Addo is therefore advocating that the occasion 75th anniversary of the signing of the Charter is an excellent opportunity for the world body to speed up the work of the intergovernmental negotiations towards the much-needed reforms of the Security Council. Mr. Speaker, God has a way of doing his things. And about 8 years ago, the President chaired the Security Council meeting as a foreign minister and made a passionate appeal on behalf of the people of Africa for detailed reforms to include African countries and people in other parts of the world on the Security Council because it did not reflect the changing trends globally. Today he's president and is still maintaining his position and advocating for what he started speaking about 8 or 10 years ago. That is commendable, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the global peace and security, which is the heartbeat of the United Nations, has not been weighing, but requires a lot of funding to support it. Especially lately, costs with regards of arms and ammunition are coming down compared to the 20th. Now, you have issues of public health that requires a holistic view or overview the United Nations does through the World Health Organization, especially when you have the United States, a serious donor, our partner, having issues with the World Health Organization. Those are the things that the UN going forward must look at, and parties to the treaty must all support and encourage the big powers to continue to support the World Health Organization. So, Speaker, ECOWAS and member states, which includes Ghana, have performed or played significant roles towards world peace and security. And the Ghana Armed Forces, through their peacekeeping operations, have supported the United Nations in a lot of activities, Liberia, Lebanon, and many other countries. The UN, through its reforms over the period, have come out with a lot of conventions on the protection of fundamental human rights, human development, and to the extent of setting up the Human Development Index, which a report is published annually. The UN, through its agencies, have also supported countries throughout the world to ensure a free, fair, peaceful, democratic processes. The UN sent observer teams and missions to many parts of the world during election time and also support those countries. And I wouldn't be surprised that their team will be in our country come December 7th to observe our general elections. So, Speaker, to the rules of the House, I want to make these brief comments and thank the Honorable Minister and entreat colleagues to comment briefly on the able statement made by the Honorable Minister. Thank you very much.
Honorable Member for Bull South or North, Bulsa North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to congratulate the Honourable Minister for the statement. Mr. Speaker, it is worth celebrating the UN and the Minister and my colleague, Honorable Okujeto, have spoken extensively about the ability of the UN to prevent from witnessing another world war. But for me, Mr. Speaker, one of the most important successes chalked by the United Nations following the adoption of its charter is the Universal Declaration of Rights, which was itself adopted in 1948, 3 years after the UN Charter was adopted. Mr. Speaker, the Universal Declaration of Rights, it is important to note, has inspired a constitution that countries that emerged from colonialism adopted for itself. A notable amounts countries that were inspired greatly by the UN Charter, the Universal Declaration of Rights, is Ghana. And so, Mr. Speaker, if you take a quick glance at Chapter 5 of our Constitution, Mr. Speaker would understand how the Universal Declaration of Rights have actually played a role in ensuring that the fundamental rights of people in this country are protected in the Bill of Rights contained in that Constitution. Mr. Speaker, apart from the fact that the Universal Declaration of Rights have inspired national constitutions of countries across the world, at the continental level, mention can also be made of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, which was set up in 2004 and sits in Arusha, Tanzania. Mr. Speaker, even at that level, the court's articles are largely inspired by the Declaration of Rights. And so today, if torture is regarded and considered as a fundamental human right, we must say kudos to the UN. Even colonialism, the fight against colonialism was largely inspired by the Human Rights Charter that the UN adopted. And so the early leaders, and you can name them, Kwame Nkrumah, and all the leaders who came, made copious references to the Charter to support the arguments advanced for the emancipation of countries that were under the shackle of colonialism. So, Mr. Speaker, on that note, I would want to urge countries to continue to respect the rights of people, because it is the lack of respect for fundamental rights which lies at the heart of most conflicts which have plagued the world. When there is no fairness in the global system, Mr. Speaker, you have the tendency to have countries slip into war. At our own domestic level, Mr. Speaker, when a statement was read on the floor to commemorate the Peacekeepers' Day, I had occasion to hint that Ghana's ability to contribute to international peace operations is largely informed by the fact that we have been able to, as it were, uphold fundamental rights of our citizens in our country. And that is why we have been able to largely insulate ourselves from conflict. And so, Mr. Speaker, for us to be able to continue to play a pivotal role in peace operations, it is important that we, Mr. Speaker, continue to uphold the rights and liberties of our citizens. So, for instance, when free speech is attacked, when the democratic is narrowed, Mr. Speaker, the result is that peace at home is guaranteed. And once peace at home is not guaranteed, Uganda's ability to continue to play a role in international peace operations is diminished to a large extent. So on that note, Mr. Speaker, I would urge that this country hold basic democratic values and principles, such as taking measures that would not disenfranchise the citizens from participating, exercising their right to vote. That is a fundamental right. Mr. Speaker, on that note, I say a big thank you for the opportunity given.
Yes. Very well. Leadership, yes.
Speaker, let me thank you for the opportunity to comment on the statement ably made by the Foreign Minister. Indeed, the UN at 2020 has chalked a significant milestone and is worth celebrating, as she has indicated. And Mr. Speaker, in doing so, we need to commend her and the various issues that she has touched on, from matters of human rights through gender equality and children, more especially on COVID and the maintenance of world peace and security. Mr. Speaker, the UN, in the face of humanity's woes, will need to provide solutions to global challenges. It is in that vein that I support at all times reforms of the UN to reflect the realities of today. I do not think that the UN 75 years ago, the mandate is what it is that it has to be doing today. And Mr. Speaker, she couldn't be more emphatic on the threat of terrorism by some individual actors at the state level. Their actions and conduct, when she mentioned the Paris Accord and Paris Agreement on climate change, I was wondering what has happened to multilateralism in pursuit of that accord having been signed, and the posture and position taken by some strong to water down or wither away the impact of that accord. The European Union, and particularly Germany and France, have never ever been particularly happy with respect to the position taken by the United States on this particular matter. Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence, let me emphasize COVID-19 and the global pandemic. The minister has indicated to us steps that government has taken and is taking, and our support for a resolution. But next time, Minister, would want to hear what the summary of the resolution is in order to guide us. I just see a tears response. But Mr. Speaker, to agree with her that the UN and the world will have to have a major conference on the impact of COVID on the earth. We should not take it for granted. If you just sit today and measure the impact of it on the global economy, whether on China, whether on the United States, not about poor Africa, it means that the quest and effort by many countries, including Ghana, to pursue, achieve a number of the SDGs will be a matter in trial, especially without adequate funding and financing availability. Even what has happened, just COVID in the last few days, liquidity, many, Katie. Speaker,
Honorable Leader, I'm listening to you. Good job and welcome. Can you finish? When we finish, we will give you funds. Can we continue?
Mr. Speaker, in days of old, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the vandal in you will accommodate my breach of procedure. The vandal in you, I would have sung to him, Katie Noba. Mr. Speaker, I'm on the SDGs and the global leaders, both at the UN level, will have to re-examine the impact of it on the pursuit and attainment of the SDGs by all countries, particularly Ghana. I mean, if you look at the number of goals we set ourselves, we certainly cannot do it without finance. And yet, global economies are suffering and will suffer arising out of COVID. I'll be more with the minister on that. Now, Speaker, as the Honorable Ablako has stated, the UN we need and the UN we have, at the level of peace, look at the turmoil in Yemen, still unresolved. Even Mr. Speaker, if you were on an official trip to Qatar, you risk being told that you cannot fly on the airspace of the United Arab Emirates or Saudi Arabia or Kuwait because of some conflict between the GCC or the Arab countries. The UN must take particular interest in it and resolve it. For instance, you have the World Cup going to Qatar. How are countries going to converge and fly to Qatar in the tension and crisis arising out of it, including what affects Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and others? On human rights, even in Ghana, there are still some breaches of it. Mr. Speaker, we can celebrate our democracy. At least fundamental freedoms and human rights have improved over the period. But the Council itself, Mr. Speaker, it has to be expanded. It cannot continue to be where it is. Even the matter of veto in this age and time must be relooked at. The matter of veto will have to be examined at the level of the United Nations. And Mr. Speaker, I conclude with what probably some of the reform issues must look at. And Mr. Speaker, undoubtedly, reliably and increasing funding for the UN will be an imperative. Enhanced modalities for civil society and other stakeholders will also be a necessity. And then, Mr. Speaker, just in the wake of COVID-19, we have seen what the United States have done to a major UN agency, the World Health Organization, in respect of their financing and funding, just because of disagreement as to how a particular country or the World Health Institution probably responded to the COVID pandemic. That itself have weakened and undermined the strength of the WHO to deal with this global public health pandemic, with its consequences on human lives and on our economy and others. What do we do if the UN, which is one of the major financiers, says that we are pulling out? If tomorrow they do so to other agencies. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to comment the maker of the statement and then also conclude with what the Honorable Ablako said, that there is a lot to celebrate and there are many Ghanaians worth celebrating who have made tremendous contributions to the UN. But like I indicated, a UN must reflect a new reality of global solutions to global challenges, and a UN that accepts that beyond democratization, there is more to do for the underdevelopment of underdeveloped Africa, Latin America, and others. So I comment on the statement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority leadership. The majority leadership wish to comment on the matter. Very well. That brings us after the end of the statement time. Honorable Majority Leader. Honorable Majority Leader, what next?
Speaker. Speaker, I thought we could go to government business, public business, but we can't take item number 6. And the chairman of the finance committee is also unavailable. So it does mean that we can't also do 7. Item number 7. The Deputy Minister for Lands and Forestry, Lands and Natural Resources, Jesse, I think it's hesitant, and the chairman of the committee, so Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, I guess we could, in the circumstance, take an adjournment.
Yes,
Speaker, I would support the leader for an adjournment. But Mr. Speaker, yourself and the leader and myself were not here when the business statement was taken. And I've made an application to the majority leader that given that the voter registration exercise will start next week, members will be obliged to be in the constituency register for themselves to meet the minimum constitutional requirement under Article 94. So I've been persuading the majority leader that if we can suspend the House for Wednesday, he's agreed to the Tuesday. I still have to convince him to add the Wednesday because when I go to Tamale Tuesday, I'll do my own registration, go around and see what is happening. We must add the Wednesday so that we can convene on Thursday to do business. But even that, knowing the reality of this House and the challenge of this House, not too many members will be available. I'll renew my application. We are adjourned to Thursday morning, if that suits him, so that at least the first 2 days, members will spend time in their constituency. Because, Mr. Speaker, this is critical. If you are not a registered voter, you cannot file. If you don't have them registered to vote, they cannot vote you, and there can be no parliament. So I'll persuade leader that I'm sure when I was making even the informal request to him, you heard my whisper at our meeting somewhere that he should consider. So leader, if we are adjourning, let's adjourn at Wednesday so that we come back on Thursday and then to make the best use of Tuesday and Wednesday and return back to work, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Majority Leader.
Speaker, in principle, I'm not against the application. I'm saying that in principle, I'm not against the application. But, Speaker, realistically, if attendance to the business of the House is I can assure the minority leader that even Thursday and Friday will not have too many members here. Which is why I agreed with him. Tuesday being the beginning, we could create space for ourselves to be in the constituency. And then for Wednesday, because, Speaker, if you look at the business statement, it's a full-weighted statement. And I thought that would allow the Accra MPs and the nearby constituencies to be here on Wednesday to carry on business of the House on Wednesday. But Tuesday, I agree with them if we go over the weekend, the necessary preparatory works will have to be done. That's beginning Saturday, Sunday, into Monday, and then. So we shall have 4 good days to ourselves. The Speaker, as I said, there's a tall order of business for us. And this week, because of the business that the MPP involved themselves in, we have transacted very light business here. And the spillover is going to next. Because the reason why, as I said, I agree in principle with the application. I thought that Tuesday will be sufficient to add to the weekend so that on Wednesday, at least those of them in Accra, the nearby constituencies could come to continue their business.
Well, I wish that you had an agreement which would make it easier for me. But the leader of government business wants us to come back on Wednesday. So I will adjourn the House to Wednesday. And is that what was agreed? You suggested?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I was proposing that we come Wednesday to continue with the business. And the other ones related to what we have here, they have to do with the Finance Committee matters. So they could do them on Wednesday.
Very well. The motion. Yes, Honorable.
Speaker, I'm sorry we are not able to build consensus, but I disagree with the leader. I will not be here on Wednesday. Thank you.
Very well. The motion for adjournment has been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Yes, leader.
Speaker, I think we should unite on this. Because we can't just leave it in abeyance. I guess the position is that we will come on Tuesday, but that will resume on Wednesday. Yes. Okay. I didn't hear that. Oh, you disagree on many things.
Yes. As many as are in favor of the motion for adjournment say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. This House accordingly adjourned to Wednesday, the 1st of July. Today is 1st July. Is that all right? Honorable Leader, let's look at this again. Or am I wrong? Where's the business?
Yes, Speaker, I thought this matter was settled last week. The Public Holidays Act, the amendments. So 1st July, Mr. Speaker, no longer is a public holiday.
Yes, Leader, 1st day, 1st July. What's the position?
Mr. Speaker, what is the position of the amended Public Holiday Bill Act?
Right, it's a commemorative day. It's no longer a public holiday. That's right. Very well. So the House is accordingly adjourned to Wednesday, the 1st of July, 2020.